welcome back into the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you some of my recommended teams to start a dynasty with in College Football 25 as we head into the new year. I think that there are some really underrated teams that are pretty awesome to play with because of select players on those teams, as well as potential upside with recruiting and things like that. So the first team that we're going to start off with in today's video that I really like to recommend to people is Liberty. Liberty is top of the Conference USA, but they're really fun to play with because of the players that they have. There's a lot of availability here to potentially do well with this team and move them to a bigger conference to build up this conference and maybe bring in other teams to compete with you and build up the reputation of Conference USA and those types of things. Really, the reason that I love this is one of the first teams that I actually played with on College Football 25 is because of their junior quarterback, Caden Salter. He is awesome with the abilities that he has. He is an absolute monster at the quarterback position, and he's going to be able to do a lot for you that's going to help you put the ball to your receivers accurately, which is really going to open up the playbook within the game. There are certain things in this game that are difficult to pull off if your quarterback doesn't have specific abilities, but a lot of routes in this game are available to you with a really good quarterback, and a lot of ball placement and the new passing mechanics within this game work really effectively with a quarterback like this that's going to have really good ratings as well as really good abilities like the Deadeye abilities and those types of things that are going to make them extremely effective at accurately placing the football where you need them to place it. He's also very fun to play with as a dual threat type of player. He's got 87 speed, 92 acceleration, 90 throw power. His accuracies are all really good. So he's everything you could really want from any type of quarterback within this game. And, you know, obviously he's not going to be the best quarterback ever, but you're going to have a couple of seasons with him potentially, being that he's a junior. You could keep him around for another year, and you could have a really fun time with this Liberty team. And the rest of their roster isn't bad either. I mean, they're not going to have some of the speedsters that the Florida teams would have, or Alabama or Georgia or whatever, but they're going to have some really solid players that have other abilities that are really effective as well. A 91 overall senior running back. The rest of their roster isn't that bad either, considering they're an 82 overall. They're just kind of positioned really well to have a fun dynasty. The second one that is positioned really well to have a awesome dynasty is actually Vanderbilt, and this was one that I did in my connected dynasty with a bunch of other people, and we were able to build this team up really well. But they have some awesome players that are going to be really good for you to begin with. You could go with the senior Pavia, however you pronounce his name. It's an 87 overall. He is kind of a dual threat type of a player. But what I like to do is I like to start the junior Nate Johnson, and I was able to win a Heisman with him. He's just one of the craziest quarterbacks in the game from a running capabilities perspective. 95 speed, 95 acceleration, good agility, good change of direction, all that stuff. Decent throw power, decent short accuracy. Now, he is going to struggle in certain areas, especially with the long ball and whatnot, so you are trading off to get that kind of fun of the running capability, but you can run so many different playbooks and have a really awesome custom playbook if you want with a quarterback like this that can do just about anything that you want them to do. Trust me, this guy was going nuts in this dynasty. I was able to build them up to be a powerhouse within the SEC. It's really cool to start off as a bottom feeder in the SEC, have that really tough competition against teams like Georgia and Bama that are hard to play against no matter who you are, especially with all the abilities and stuff that the players on their team have. So it's just a really cool dynasty to be able to take a Vanderbilt and build them up over time. And you're positioned well with some really solid players. Cedric Alexander was really fun at running back. Even though he's only got that bronze, I think it is, 360 trait, he's just a very solid running back to start off with. They also have some really solid receivers. They have a couple of 97 speed receivers that you could throw out there to the outside that are juniors and just throw the ball up to them. They would be really fun to connect with. I mean, this team has so many potential speed demons on it. The 90 overall, 88 speed Eli Stowers at tight end, and that's just to name a few of them. The rest of their roster is not bad either, especially considering that they're an SEC school. They're an 82 overall. You will have trouble competing against teams like Georgia and whatnot because you just don't have the players with the abilities to compete, but there's just some really awesome players on this team. and players that you're not really going to have access to with most of the other kind of buildable teams that are going to be a challenge like this in Dynasty Mode. And third on this list is going to be the Pitt Panthers. I feel like an often overlooked team within college football. They haven't necessarily been the best in recent decades, but they have a really stacked, I would say, roster within college football 25. Again, only an 83 overall, but you're coming in with a Eli Holston that has, really solid traits all around, 95 throw power, really good accuracies across the board, and he's a redshirt freshman, so he's going to be there for a while. As long as you keep him around, you keep him happy, you keep him winning, you're going to have some really awesome fun with this guy. They have some really awesome potential talent here on this team with some really good capabilities. They're stacked at running back with a few different very capable players. Reed and Hammond are both very effective. At receiver, they also have a mix of talent. I liked throwing the 98 speed guy out there and just throwing up deep balls to him to see if he could go get it with an awesome quarterback like Holstein. It really just opens up the game, and I think that's one of the funnest things about college football is that you can really just open things up whenever you have certain players like that. And again, it's mainly the quarterback that makes it. Being able to have a Holstein that's going to be able to develop into a absolute monster as a quarterback, who already is a monster as a quarterback, is just going to be a game changer for how fun a dynasty can be for you. The fourth spot on this list is going to be taken by the San Diego State Aztecs, and this one's a really interesting one, I feel like, for a variety of reasons. One of the most interesting things about this team is their uniform combinations. They have some of the coolest uniforms within the game, in my personal opinion, so they can be extremely fun to play with just simply from that aspect. They are a little bit of a build, but they have some decent freshman players at various different positions that you'll be able to build up. One of the funnest things about this team, though, is their 98 speed running back. You can really get things going with a top-end speed running back like that, and you can kind of run away from certain competition, no pun intended, in a conference like the Mountain West and whatnot. When you have a player with elite speed or elite athleticism like that, it really is a difference maker. If you haven't played with a player like this, and again, this is a personal experience thing. So far, pretty much every team has been a personal experience thing. This one's one that I experienced recently. I have yet to, in college football 25, play with a player that has speed like this at the running back position. It is an absolute game changer, and it makes things so much more fun at that position than they were prior to me experiencing that. And so now I'm going to want those speed demons at the running back position too, because it just opens things up. Just like having a great quarterback with abilities can open things up in the passing game, it can make things work in the playbook that wouldn't otherwise work with another type of a player. Same thing with speedsters at receiver and whatnot. The same thing is true for running backs. You can really open up the running game with different concepts that weren't necessarily there for you before, because they just simply didn't work with standard running backs. Likewise, in the pass game, a 98 speed running back can be a difference maker as well. Imagine most of the linebackers in this game being able to try to cover a player like that. Now, he is a senior, so there is that caveat there, but this is a really cool team to be able to build up as well. At the 5 spot on this list is yet again another personal experience team that I think was a lot of fun, and that is the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. Hawaii has a really cool team to be able to play with for a couple of reasons. Now, this is going to be the weakest team so far on the list at a 77 overall, and you're really going to have to lean on specific players, which again kind of makes it fun in a way. Having to lean on one receiver that is your star guy is a really cool concept that is something a lot of teams have to do. Having to rely on specific players at positions can make it challenging and therefore fun in that way. It's also a challenge to be able to recruit with a team like this. This is another really cool team that has a pretty solid starting quarterback in Shager, I believe is how you say his name. At an 81 overall, he is a pretty solid, accurate quarterback. Not going to let you down necessarily, but I like to play the freshman, and you could wait to play the freshman, but Micah Alejado, maybe is how you say his name, 87 speed, 89 acceleration, not going to be the craziest running quarterback in the world, but really presents some capability on the ground there. He comes in with 85 throw power, so a little bit of a weaker arm. You might have to keep things into a little bit of a different range as far as what you can throw in comparison to other quarterbacks that have throw power into the 90s, but he's a really cool quarterback to be able to use. And I like to really try to connect with McBride, Stephen McBride at wide receiver. This guy led all of college football in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and whatnot when I was in this dynasty, because I just had to rely on getting him the ball. It's not like the other guys were bad necessarily, and don't get me wrong, these guys have their specific skill sets that can be utilized well as well. But McBride, especially against Mountain West competition, just set himself apart. He's just such a good route runner. He had such good hands. I just always found him being open and was able to get him the ball constantly and just run away with things with him. And again, a senior player, but I think it presents a really cool opportunity to be able to kind of utilize specific individual players. I also really liked Landon Sims at running back. And I know that that's going to sound weird, especially when you consider there's a similar overall player that has the shifty ability, that has way better athleticism. But Landon Sims was like crazy good for an 86 speed running back. You just put the hammer down with this guy, he would fall forward. I was able to get a bunch of rushing yards with this guy, and he's good as a receiver too. As you can see, he is safety valve, sidekick, those types of things. So just an all-around really effective player. And then Barfield coming in as a change of pace guy is really effective. But I just think they're a really cool offense to try to play with. And the next team on this list is going to be the California Golden Bears, a team that I feel like might have come into the year a little bit overrated with that 83 overall rating. But I mean, still a solid college football team. There are some really fun players to use on this team, especially on the defensive side of the ball, coming in with some senior players at corner, middle linebacker, free safety, defensive tackle, corner, various different players here that are very effective on that side of the ball. That's their strength for sure. But some select players on the offensive side of the ball are really fun to use as well. Fernando Mendoza is a really solid field general style quarterback that's a sophomore here. But really the hype comes from their running back core and primarily Jaden Ott. This guy is crazy. I don't know if you've ever played against him in Dynasty Mode or any mode within College Football 25, or you've used him, or you've been in a connected dynasty where somebody has been Cal. But this guy is just an absolute monster. And he might not necessarily look like it right off the bat, but at 89 overall and a junior, he's got a bunch of traits: shifty, sidestep, takeoff, 360 at really good levels, and then he's got 97 acceleration. And I think one of the most underrated ratings within any position, especially skill positions within College Football 25 and Madden and just football games in general, is acceleration. Acceleration can be used and abused to make players extremely effective and play more effective than they originally might seem. Javian Thomas is very similar with his acceleration and his capabilities, even though he's a lower overall. You have a really good 1-2 punch here at running back, and you'll be effective for a long time considering one's a junior, one's a sophomore. You're going to have a lot of fun with this team on the ground, through the air, because of those running backs, and they're no slouches at other positions either. They do have some solid receiver talent here. They have a lot of speed, so they're going to be able to keep up. They're going to be able to get separation and those types of things. A really fun offense, but one of the better defenses that I've shown you so far. High 80s players at some really key positions, some just really solid players in general across the defense. And then the final team that I'm going to give you on this list is going to be maybe a surprise to a lot of people, and that is Stanford. At an 82 overall, they're not the best roster in the world. There aren't really many specific players that I want to highlight for you that are going to stand out for you right off the bat. I mean, they do have some really solid players like this wide receiver. He tends to be a transfer, so you could get him to stay. I think that would be a cool challenge because he ends up being a big transfer to a lot of teams within most dynasties. But the coolest thing about Stanford is where they stand as far as recruiting is concerned. And you might be surprised to hear that, but they actually come in as a top 15 recruiting school, and they actually come in just behind teams like Texas, Penn State, Florida State, and Auburn. So it's interesting that they are ranked as highly as they are in recruiting capability. And the reason that they're ranked so highly is because of their pipelines. They have really good access to Southern California, North Texas, Northern California, East Texas, Tennessee, Tidewater, Big Apple, Pacific Northwest, Alabama, and Metro Atlanta, all of those being silver and above. And so their recruiting capabilities are actually surprisingly really good. You're going to have access to a lot of good recruits to begin with. So if you build your coach up right and do things right, you're going to be able to get in a lot of good recruits, and you're going to be able to compete actually pretty quickly with this team. Being in the ACC, you're going to be able to compete. It's not necessarily the strongest competition in the world. Maybe once you build this team up, you could jump ship to the Big Ten or something like that. But nonetheless, it's really cool from a recruiting perspective. A team that, unless you're a Stanford fan, I don't know how many people are going out there and trying to play as Stanford in a connected dynasty or a dynasty in general. And I don't know how many people would have thought top 15 recruiting schools, Stanford. To me, that seems a little bit odd that they would be above so many other good teams. And just to read off the list of teams that they are above Miami, South Carolina, Tennessee, Ole Miss, Notre Dame, North Carolina, Georgia Tech, Arizona State, in terms of their recruiting capability. The results speak for themselves. You guys should go out and try a Stanford dynasty. Stanford is supposedly a top 15 recruiting school and can become one of the best teams in the nation pretty quickly. And so with all that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed today's video, a little bit of a change of pace. Let me know your kind of hidden gem teams to play as within Dynasty and College Football 25, whether it be from specific players, whether it be from recruiting or whatever perspective. I'd be curious to know down in the comments below what you guys would have to say, what teams you guys are using or plan to use that are like that. And let me know what you think of the list that I put out there for you guys. But with all that being said, I hope you guys have a good one. As always, leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.